And we're back here at WNZK AM 690 Radio, the US Arab Radio Network, hosted by Laila Alhusini, who works hard as a journalist and radio network founder to empower Arab Americans, and brought to you by the Arab News newspaper at arabnews.com, and businesses and charities and organizations. And I'm proud to have the newspaper that carries my column to also join that sponsorship. The Arab News newspaper is the Middle East's leading English language print newspaper with editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Japan in Japanese, Pakistan in Urdu, France in French, and with bureaus in London, New York, and Chicago, where I'm based, where we generally speak English, but it's not always guaranteed. The US Arab Radio Network was launched in 2005 by journalist and radio network founder Laila Alhusini in an effort to energize and empower Arab Americans. WNZK AM 690 is one of the country's leading radio stations offering formats for ethnic American communities. We have a good show coming up here. We're going to be talking in a few minutes with Jim Zogby, the founder of and president of the Arab American Institute, the AAI, in Washington, D.C. He serves as a political and policy research arm of the Arab American community. Jim is a supporter of Joe Biden campaign, and he'll talk to us about his perspectives on the debates and the upcoming election. We were going to have another guest. Unfortunately, she was maybe intimidated. I don't know. Jim, I'm telling you, Jim, I've known Jim Zogby since, the 80s. And this guy is dedicated to American politics in the context of getting Arab Americans involved and getting the American community to recognize us as an important constituency in the United States. It's very important that we participate. And I think one of the big things that the AAI and the Arab American Institute and Jim Zogby have done is they've really made Arab Americans aware in a cohesive way about why it's so important to be involved in politics. We've been involved in everything else. We've been veterans. We served during World War I. Actually, we had a few people in the Civil War who served. And we've had Arab Americans proudly serving in every war, defending this country. Obviously, we don't want war, but we're very proud to be part of the movement to defend America. Of course, the technology here is we're trying to go live on Facebook, and, Facebook's just giving us all kinds of trouble. Unbelievable. I'm not even sure why it's such a pain, but we're recording this, and immediately after it's recorded, we'll have it posted on Facebook, and you can still listen to us live on US Arab Radio. Actually at arabradio.us/live, arabradio.us/live, if you're outside of the greater Detroit region. Our number is 248-557-3300, 248-557-3300. If you want to call in, we're going to be talking about the debate. Did you watch Mike Pence, the vice president, and Senator Kamala Harris debate? I thought, and there was good and bad about everybody, just like in the presidential debate between Joe Biden and President Trump. I thought Joe Biden achieved his goal during the debate with President Trump to show himself as a capable person, because they were slandering him so badly, saying, oh, this guy is having trouble, he's senile, he can't think, he's too old. He would be the oldest president, I think, at 78 years old, but he did a good job. He held it together. He was cohesive. He was on the ball. He was right there on every issue. And he wasn't insulting for the most part, although he did call Trump many, many names, which I think was his big mistake. Trump, on the other hand, was disruptive, and he missed the ball. Instead of focusing on the big issue that would have helped him, which is fighting crime, he lost control of the narrative. And it just went from issue to issue. And I think when I talked to people after the presidential debate, you couldn't really remember anything significant other than maybe Biden telling him to shut up. And I think Trump had one line saying that he's been in office. He's done more in office in 47 months than Biden has done in public life in 47 years. Great line. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's memorable. And sadly, nobody remembers the issues. Trump's big asset, I think, is the crime issue. People, especially in the center, the conservative Democrats, they're worried about the push against the people who are criticizing the protesters in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests and the really tragic killing of George Floyd. Nobody supports the killing of anybody, and police officers who cross that line should be punished. But there are many people, especially those conservative Democrats who supported Trump the first time, who are concerned that the left is pushing too hard to defund the police, to weaken police protection, and to blame all police. I don't believe you can blame all the police. That was a made-for-Trump issue in this election, and I think he dropped the ball. And then, of course, after the debate, he got sick with the coronavirus. He was diagnosed with COVID-19, and that only shifted the focus even further away from his issue of fighting crime and being the crime fighter that the centrist conservative Democrats want. Most Arabs, by the way, Arab Americans and Muslims are conservative to some degree. They support family values. They believe in religion, very strongly. So there is a balance there in the middle. There's an overlap. And I think Trump failed, lost the ball. It was taken away from him by his stupid policy not to wear a face mask. Face masks, I know there's a debate about whether they're effective or not, but the issue to me is, what's the difference? Wear it. How could it hurt? If it can help, wear it, right? How could it hurt to wear a face mask? So why not wear it? And when you're the president of the United States, when you're the mayor of a local community, when you're a senator, a congressman, and you're not wearing a face mask, when you're in a group of 250 people, when you're announcing your candidate for the Supreme Court, purely irresponsible. And I think it's seen that way, unfortunately. And me, I've been trying to go both ways to help both sides, to show what I think are the faults and failings of the mainstream national news media. I don't believe they've been fair. I think they've taken sides, and I think that's wrong. And I think it's disrespectful to the American people, because I think the media is saying basically, when they don't do their jobs by being objective and they become opinionated reporters. Now, you know me, I'm a columnist. I'm opinionated, but you know that because I tell you that. The mainstream media isn't telling you that. They're saying, no, we're objective, we're fair, we're the final authority on what's right and what's wrong. You should listen to us. And then they go ahead and give you opinion instead of fair, balanced coverage. That's wrong. So I think that there were a lot of reasons that Trump could have benefited, but I think he really stumbled. Biden achieved his goal. I think it was a mark for him. I think in the vice presidential debates, and we're going to talk with Jim Zogby about all this, because, like I said, he's been covering American politics in the Arab American community for many years, and he's probably the authority on Arab American politics, but also very close and very active in the Democratic Party with all the Democratic presidents. He understands the Beltway in Washington, D.C., and when you want to understand American politics, he's a great resource to go to. So we're going to be talking with him in a little bit. But when it comes to the vice presidential debate that we just saw, I thought that Mike Pence was far better at challenging this perception that the Trump administration is disrespectful. Pence was the perfect gentleman. The only thing he did wrong was he just couldn't, he just wouldn't stop talking. And the other thing I guess he did wrong was when he did talk, I don't know, he didn't there were no really powerful sound bites, no powerful issues that he drove home. It was like all this excessive talking going beyond his 2 minutes every time. It got to be an obsession when you're watching the debate to see him keep talking past the 2 minutes, that he couldn't even, get his views across, to explain what he wanted to do. So it was kind of disturbing. And I think Kamala Harris, though, her worst moment was she reminded me of Hillary Clinton. There was this laughter and smiling and like she was arrogant and entitled. And that's what really hurt Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. All right, listen, let's take our first break. And when we come back, we should be connected with Jim Zogby from the Arab American Institute. Great guy, very informative, very helpful. And then we'll continue this discussion. Our phone number, 248-557-3300. Here at the US Arab Radio Network on WNZK AM 690. I'm Ray Hanania here at the Ray Hanania Show, brought to you by the Arab News newspaper at arabnews.com. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
Read the Arab News newspaper for the latest on the U.S. elections, the battle for president, and breaking news and unique stories on Arabs in America and the world. Online at arabnews.com. The Arab News newspaper is the leading English language newspaper in the Arab world, with editions in France, Pakistan, Japan, Dubai, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and bureaus in London, New York, and Chicago. Join the more than 5 million people who follow the Arab News on Facebook, online at arabnews.com.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Show here at WNZK AM 690 Radio in Detroit, Michigan, broadcast on the US Arab Radio Network. And sponsored by the Arab News newspaper, the Middle East's leading English language print newspaper, with editions in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Japan, Pakistan, France, and bureaus in London, New York, and Chicago, where I'm based. The U.S. Arab Radio Network was launched in 2005 by journalist and radio network founder Laila Alhusini in an effort to energize and empower Arab Americans. And I think Laila is doing a great job. Let's go and admit, we'll get Jim Zogby on the line here right now. And go ahead, Jim, if you have your, hey, Jim, how are you? Oh, there you are.
How are you?
I'm just, I can only talk you up so much without you being on there. So I spent the first 15 minutes talking about all the years we've known each other, how much I've learned from you, all the things you did. And the only thing that's probably not good about this is it means you're a little older than me. Okay. I'm really sorry to make that point.
Actually, a lot older than you, but that's okay.
The nice thing about being Arab is that we look younger than we really are. So you're looking good, Jim. And please, again, accept my condolences passing of Eileen, your wife, that was a big
Thanks.
blow to the community. So thank you. And she's remembered. Jim, this is a big election, isn't it? Coming up November 3rd. And you've been really into politics. Why is the country so divisive this time? I mean, in reality, what's the reason for it, do you think?
Well, number one, big election. It is, my brother and I were joking about this because in 2000, he coined the expression, the Armageddon election, referring to the Bush-Gore one.
Right.
That pales in comparison to what's at stake here.
And you're talking
Because-
about John Zogby, the pollster,
right.
phenomenal pollster, by the way, great guy.
What is at stake here is not just the direction of the country, but it's the very survival of our democracy. We have a president who is off the rails and actually getting worse every day with the steroid treatment that he's on. His tweets and his public pronouncements have become so extreme as to be rather frightening. And what's more frightening than the president is that there are hundreds of thousands of people who like each one of his nutty tweets. And I made the comparison to, back during the pre-COVID days when you would be walking to the metro on the corner of Connecticut and K Street here in Washington, there'd be some guy out front with a bullhorn saying, the end is at hand, come save, be saved, whatever. And people would just be walking by. What would it be like if hundreds of thousands of people gathered to listen to him?
Well,
that's
they did.
what when I
They
see
did.
100,000 likes for Donald Trump, literally not quite praising the kidnapping of attempted kidnapping of Governor Whitmer, but certainly not condemning it either right off the bat. So it's the difficult situation. What brought it on? We've been in a hyper-partisan frame since it's almost 3 decades, since Newt Gingrich took control of the Republican House of Representatives and began to push a sort of a scorched earth policy. Remember the number of investigations of Clinton that went nowhere, and then finally the impeachment for what now appears incredibly minor compared to what we're dealing with in the White House at this point. And it continued. I remember when Barack Obama was first elected, they pledged they would support nothing, and they blocked as much as they conceivably could, funded the Tea Party, organized the birther movement, and became a major obstructionist force using racism and anti-Islamic fervor to question the president's actual citizenship, his legitimacy as a president, his faith. And that created a tidal wave that ultimately drowned the Republican Party itself. I recall in 2010, when they had a chance of winning a number of Senate seats, they blew it because they ended up having Tea Party candidates winning primaries who ultimately lost to the Democrat in November because White Castle should have been the senator from Delaware, but they instead nominated a Tea Party lady who was a witch, and she ended up imploding, and Chris Coons made it to the Senate. That happened in Nevada. It happened in 3 states.
And so the Tea Party devoured
them, and Donald Trump is the result of it. He has devoured the Republican Party and transformed it into basically an ongoing, permanent revolution against the status quo, and it's very destabilizing.
I think that was the most insightful analysis I've heard in a long time. That it started with Newt Gingrich, who really kind of took politics to an extreme end. It evolved into the Tea Party, which was one of the most destructive, extreme organizations we've seen.
Remember, Ray, just interrupt you. Before Newt Gingrich, it was Bob Michael, one of your folks from Illinois.
Yeah, nice guy.
The Bob Michael Republican Party worked with Democrats.
Yes, I remember.
And Ray LaHood, who was Bob Michael's chief of staff, became the congressman after him. And think of the kind of congressman Ray LaHood was, and think of what we now have in the Republican Party. Ray LaHood has no place. Bob Michael never would have had a place in the Republican Party. Gerald Ford couldn't have found a place in today's Republican Party. It's a completely different thing. And it was Newt Gingrich that created that.
And I think that that's so important for people to understand. But there is one other factor, and I want to ask you to maybe you agree or disagree with this, but it seems like the media has reacted to this the way a voter would react to it. And what I mean by that is that it seems like they're taking sides. To a lot of voters, they think that it's the media attacking Trump. So anybody who might have supported Trump isn't really looking at the goofiness of some of the tweets, the inconsistency in some of the things that he says. I mean, in fairness to him, he's not a politician. He's a celebrity reality TV star, but it seems like the media is so obsessed and ganged up against him that the focus is on them rather than being able to look at Trump and say, wow, that guy's terrible.
I think that you're right in that there is no longer an American news media. It's an entertainment division of the
five corporations.
NBC has its entertainment, and then it has its news entertainment, which is MSNBC. Not really news.
Right.
There's ranting from the left, there's ranting from the right, and then there's CNN, which is a weird animal because there's neither right nor left. There's no truth at all. Let's just yell at each other for an hour or so. And people do pick that up. We don't. This is not the Walter Cronkite, John Cameron, Swayze, Huntley and Brinkley era, my era.
Right.
Objective news commentators.
Can you imagine Walter Cronkite? Can you imagine Walter Cronkite being a reporter today, looking at all this? What he would have said? He was like the father of the community, not just the journalist.
And we're not there. So you're right. People do react to that and become siloed. You end up, you have Fox News viewers, you have MSNBC viewers, and never the twain meet.
Right.
And when you watch CNN, like I said, it's disturbing because instead of, again, being just news, it's rant from the left, rant from the right, and no objective center to work off of. So people either they have their bias and the bias becomes reinforced in the silo that they end up entering. And what's disturbing, I think, is that with the advent of the internet, there was this sense that the world would open up and we would have unlimited possibilities to get information. Instead, what happens is that it's almost like when my kids went to college. They two went to small colleges and ended up knowing lots of different people, from the chess club nerd to the football players. Those who went to really large colleges, enormous, like the University of Virginia, ended up gravitating toward people like them, and they lived with them and they hung with them. Right. And that's what happens on the internet, is that there's so much that you end up siloing into places that reinforce your existing prejudices. And the result is that never the twain meet. You get your information from this guy, they get their information from that guy, and there's no common ground to reach. And if you're a politician, you play to that crowd. You don't play to this crowd. And you reinforce the division that way. So the political culture, the media culture, the popular culture all combine to create and enhance this polarization that we're in. And Donald Trump is the creature of that. And he's not the cure, he's the creature. And sometimes, and I think
I was going to say sometimes it could turn out well. Because I remember covering Chicago City Hall from Richard J. Daley to Richard M. Daley. After Daley passed away, Mike Blandick, the machine mayor, took over, and he was upended by one of his administrators who was angry with him, Jane Byrne, the Consumer Services Commissioner. Jane Byrne was obsessed. She would have been a great mayor, except she was obsessed with fear that Richard J. Daley's son, Richard M. Daley, was going to take over. So she spent 4 years attacking Richard M. Daley, who really wasn't that great of a politician. He was young. He was not articulate at the time. He was just getting started. He couldn't argue a great issue, but she just constantly attacking him, distracted from his failings. And in 4 years, she turned him into a powerful mayoral candidate. He didn't win that next election. Harold Washington did, who I know you know, and was a great mayor. But when Harold Washington passed away, Rich Daley became the great mayor that he was, in part because of that experience. We called it martyring in politics. And it seems like the media is martyring Trump. But in Trump's case, he's unlike Rich Daley, who had the talent to be a great mayor. I'm not sure Trump has the talent to be a great president, but people can't see it on his side. They're like blinded by this fog of anger, media bias. I can't turn on the TV without hearing one-sided attacks. And even for somebody like me, who's a little conservative, but always on the left, it's hard not to look at that unfairness. How do you deal with that? What do we do?
Well, I think look, to some extent, it's not unfairness as much as it is, this is what the media has become.
Yeah.
And Trump is himself a creature of media. He is an entertainment character. He is the apprentice, after all. That's what made him into the quote unquote iconic figure that he is. And he lives and dies by ratings. Everything he does is based on that. So the criticism it's not so unwarranted. What concerns me more than the role of media is, like I said, the guy out on the corner ranting,
Right.
And nobody stops and listens. When a couple 100,000 people stop and listen, or in this case, millions of people stop and listen, the question is not so much to parse the content of what the person is saying in the bullhorn. It's what is the inclination? Why do people stop and listen? What are their needs? And so I think that where we need to be looking right now is why do people support this man, and why do they see him as victim? What does it say about them? And I think what it says to me is that they themselves feel victims. They themselves feel screwed. And in reality, they have been screwed.
You know, if Hillary Clinton had listened to you, instead of calling them deplorables,
yeah,
had offered your analysis just now, is probably the most cohesive analysis I've seen.
I offered it, and what I was told was that we're not wasting money throwing it after people who aren't going to vote for us anyway. That's actually what they said.
And that was a mistake.
I was on the executive committee of the party back then, and I still believe that that instead of just as Democrats focusing on quote unquote base vote and Republicans focusing on their base vote, we need a message that speaks to everybody.
Right.
And that's what I think in some ways that's what Joe Biden's unique role is that he does speak to white working class voters and black voters and Latino voters, et cetera. People are hurting. They feel the rug got pulled out from under them. They see government serving others, not them. They see factories closed, mines closed. They watch television and they say, "Oh my God, my children can't watch that. That's not the values I want them." They see everything changing around them and they don't quite know how to get a grip on it.
Yeah.
And along comes Donald Trump and says, "You're screwed because they're screwing you, and I'm the only one who can fix it for you." And they became enchanted with that. I think that there's a need to address that and to show compassion for that, and not approach it with a kind of contempt, which is, I think, what to some extent the coastal elites as the Republicans like to call them. That's what they've done. They've looked down their noses at people who are hurting,
right,
without asking, why are you hurting?
Right. And we got to take a quick break. And I have a few more questions. I know you're on limited time, but I think if
limited time, Ray, because it's 8:30 in the morning, which is really early for me to function. So if I'm not making any sense, that's why.
You're making phenomenal sense, Jim. Honestly, this is probably one of the best interviews, next only to Ed Gabriel, who I know is a friend of yours, who probably the two of you went to the same political school. But and the question I want to ask before we go to break is, why doesn't Biden do that? What will he? Do you think he's going to reach out and do what Hillary should have done 4 years ago, to appeal to those people who support Trump, not to degrade them as deplorable, to say, listen, I know what you're going through, I'm going to help you. And because you can play to your choir on both sides, and it'll be what it is, but there's a chance to change those voters. Do you think he can do that, or will he do it?
I think he does that. That's his unique quality as an establishment Democratic politician. In all the years that I was on the executive committee chairing the Ethnic Council, which were the very guys in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin that we were losing, I used to joke that the only strategy that the party ever had was to send Joe Biden to Scranton every 4 years to make that pitch. He's now the candidate, and he's making that pitch.
Right.
Would that he could have been out on the campaign trail, actually meeting people all the time. But he speaks to that working class Scranton mindset, and I think if you listen to his speeches, there's a compelling part of it where he tells his story, talks about his family, talks about the working class neighborhood that he grew up in, that he moved into with his family in Delaware. And there's a bit of an interesting kind of like resentment. I'm not the Princeton guy.
Right.
He makes that point. And I think that speaks to people in a way that, for example, Hillary couldn't.
Right.
And even Barack Obama, he could have, but he didn't.
Right.
And so there is, I think, a possibility that Joe Biden breaks through on that with that constituency. Okay.
All right, we'll take one quick break, but hang on, because I want to ask you a few more. I know we're cutting.
5 more minutes is it.
All right.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, let me just we got to take this quick break really fast. Otherwise, the sponsors will kill me. I'm Ray Hanania. This is the Ray Hanania Show, sponsored by the Arab News newspaper. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Water covers 71% of the world, and the Arab News newspaper covers the rest, with breaking news from across the Arab and Muslim world and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the headlines with expert analysis and insight at arabnews.com. Join 5 million Facebook fans who stay in touch with the Arab News, the Arab world's leading English language newspaper, online at arabnews.com.
Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab offers a great array of your favorite Mediterranean meals. Meals range from lamb specialties, shawarma sandwiches, seafood dinners, and they offer special big trays of your favorite food, plus much more. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab address is 32839 Northwestern Highway in Farmington Hills. Their phone number is 248-538-9552. That number again is 248-538-9552. And the supermarket is open from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Kushat's Mediterranean Market and Shish Kebab will definitely leave you satisfied.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
And we're back here at WNZK AM 690 Radio, the US Arab Radio Network, hosted by Laila Alhusini, who works hard as a journalist and radio network founder to empower Arab Americans. And also brought to you by the Arab News newspaper at arabnews.com. And of course, Jim Zogby, our guest, has been working very hard, not just to empower Arab Americans, but to help Americans better understand who we are and engage us all in a very productive politics. Jim, tell us why Arabs should support Biden and Kamala Harris, because there are some feelings, some minor roads, but I try to explain to people that in politics, it's never 100%. Why should they support Biden? What's their advantage for them? Let's just look at ourselves selfishly. What benefit do we have?
Well, number one is human beings. This president has done to our political culture. He has so degraded it and polluted it with bigotry and with hate that it for our children and grandchildren, we need to make change. We need to restore something old-fashioned like decency to the way we speak about each other and the way we speak about the concerns that we have. I found that as I listen to folks who've been calling and folks I talk with when I was going around the country and meeting with people telling me about how in grade school, people were picking on Latinos, you're going to be deported, or picking on Muslims and tearing off headscarves, or saying things to black kids, et cetera. The damage done by polluting our political culture and our discourse has been severe. Then there is the fact that he's a failure as a president. I mean, I often think if we had done a lockdown for 3 weeks when we first knew this was here, we'd be over the hump already now. Instead, 212,000 people have died, 7.5 million infected. And the notion that it's not a big deal, it's like the flu, only 200 and whatever, some little percent of the, my wife was in the hospital for many, many months, attempting to recover from a stroke. I have stayed friends with some of the therapists she had in the 2 different hospitals she was in. They tell me that their stroke units are now COVID units. And they're COVID units because about 20% of people who get this virus end up with a permanent disability, sometimes affecting their ability to walk, their ability to talk, their cognition. This is a dangerous disease, and it's not the flu. And then there is the way he has made a mess of America in the world. I mean, Barack Obama tried to bring us back, but he faced enormous hurdles. The hole that George W. Bush dug with that Iraq war was so deep. And what Donald Trump has done is just add chaos to that hole. It's almost as if he's still digging, but he's throwing dirt every which way. America's role in the world today is something fundamentally different than it ever was before. We're a laughingstock. And in the absence of leadership and in the way that we've lost a role and an ability to be a convener, we now have a Middle East that is in total chaos. And Donald Trump is fueling that chaos rather than helping to bring it to some kind of resolution. You have Iran and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and China and Israel and Russia all competing in different mixtures in 5 or 6 different conflicts that have become so confusing sometimes with, Russia and Israel on one side in one conflict and Russia and Iran on one side and another conflict. And it's like, who's who's with what. There's no way of even sorting out the teams. And that's because America's absent as playing a real role. Do I want to say America run the world? Absolutely not. We're not capable, nor would I trust us to do it. But what I do think is that when we're not involved at all, you have chaos, and that's where we are right now. And finally, I think that there is so much good that can be done if stability returns to the way we do politics. And so the chaos at home that's been created, where you wake up every morning and you wonder, what the hell is he going to be tweeting about last night? Is he going to be inciting to violence? Is he going to be yes stimulus, no stimulus? I mean, we could have dealt with the economy and the crisis caused by this disease early on in a coherent way, and we didn't. And the result is that the rich got richer, the poor got poorer, everyone has stagnated and or suffered, and we're still not out of the woods, and probably won't be out of the woods if he continues for a long time to come. There's so many reasons to do it. And just on the particular Arab American concerns, look, I've been working in politics for at least 40 years now, full time. And there has never been a presidential campaign that has paid as much attention to our community as this one.
That's true.
They issued a 6-page Arab American policy statement. I never saw anything like it before. Number one, it's never happened. No campaign has ever done that before. Number two, the content of it, getting rid of profiling and committing to it, dealing with the politics of exclusion, which we've suffered from for so long, recognizing that while, yes, they oppose BDS, the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, they will protect our constitutional right to free speech, and then go on to say, which is why he defended Rashida and Ilhan when Israel denied them entry. And he said in the statement, and I condemned Israel for denying them entry, at least going back to status quo ante before Trump, restoring the PLO office, opening the consulate in East Jerusalem, restoring the aid to UNRWA and the aid to the Palestinians. That may not be enough for some folks, but it's a hell of a lot better than where we are right now. And politics, I've always said, elections are not the choice you want to have. They're the choice you really do have, what's right in front of you. And you cannot look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden and say that doesn't make a difference. And people who tell me that, I say, just think if Al Gore had won in 2000 and we didn't have an Iraq war, where we'd be. Just think if Hillary Clinton had won and we did not have the chaos and the absolute, unbelievable mess that we're in right now. Elections make a difference. And so this one is critical. It's critical in part because this guy, we're not even sure he's going to leave the White House if he loses. They're already stirring up chaos in states all over the country with lawsuits threatening to challenge the election results. The result is that we might end up in a constitutional crisis. We can't. At some point, it's like when my brother and I'd be squabbling, and my mother would say, "Enough! I can't stand this anymore. You're driving me crazy. Enough! We're all going crazy here. We need to bring the temperature down." And Joe Biden is the guy who can bring the temperature down. So for all those reasons, I think there really is no choice here. This is such a clear-cut case of sanity versus insanity that we really have to be on the side of protecting our sanity.
If we can see it that way, I totally agree with you. And I think that when I look at the election, I'm not sure it's going to go one way or the other. I think it's right teetering on the edge there. If you can use your influence to get Biden to speak to that group of people who were Democrats who supported Trump, to let them know he's not Hillary Clinton, he doesn't see them as deplorables. If he makes that message clearer, I'm going to say that he's going to win the election. I think that those people will run to him because they don't like being deers in headlight, wondering about the whacking noises coming from behind them, angry at the media, and really not looking at Joe Biden. I would love to see him do that. And you're the guy to make that point, because this has been probably the most insightful analysis that I've heard, honestly, Jim, not just because we've been friends for so long, but the way you put it in context is so important. I think people need to hear that. So thank you so much, Jim.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks.
Listen, Jim,
I would say that is what Joe Biden's been doing. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate him, is that I think that from the convention on down, he has been trying to speak to people on the right, on the left, and in the center. And people complain, why did he have Republicans speaking at the convention? Why did he have John Kasich? I think it was smart. It was smart to have AOC and John Kasich.
Yes.
It was important to have a message that spoke to everyone. And I've been, since I've been a Bernie supporter and I was a Jesse Jackson supporter, my mission is to progressives to say, don't tell me he's not perfect and you're not voting for him. Don't make the perfect your goal. Make good your goal. Make better your goal. And we need to be better than what we are right now. And I think that Joe Biden's the guy to make it better. Thank you, Mike, very much.
You're welcome, Jim. Jim Zogby.
Chicagoland. Bye-bye.
No, Jim, we're looking forward to having you at the Arab American Democratic Club, October 25th. And for listeners, you want to find more about Jim Zogby and the Arab American Institute, go to aaius.gov.
AAIUSA.org.
aaiusa.org.
Or they can follow me on Twitter at JJZ1600.
All right. Now I'm going to be calling you JJ from now on, okay?
You got it, man.
We love you, Jim. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. That's Jim Zogby, folks. What a great guy. It was just great to have him on the program. I'm Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690 Radio on the US Arab Radio Network. It's October 9, 2020, and this is the Friday edition of the Ray Hanania Show. We have our Wednesday special focus on elections every Wednesday. And I just couldn't wait to get Jim on. I wanted to bring him on a Wednesday. I want to tell people I'm sorry that the Facebook page, I'm not sure why it's not working. If you're outside of the greater Detroit region, it's just phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal bump for me that it didn't work. I want to thank the Arab News newspaper for sponsoring this show. Their website is arabnews.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, if you want to call at 248-557-3300, we will take your phone calls, 248-557-3300. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to be right back right after these messages.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
إلي ساعة عم بستناك مشان نروح نتغدى بالشام.
بالشام؟
إيه بالشام ومو بالشام.
شلون صارت هي؟
بدل ما نروح نتغدى بالشام
إيه
جابوا لنا الأكلات الشامية الطيبة لعنا لهم.
وشلون بقى؟
هذا مطعم دماس عم يعمل كل الأكلات الشامية الطيبة فوق.
طيبة؟
طيبة كتير.
شاركوا نتغدى سوا بمطعم دماس.
الأكل الشامي الأصيل فقط بدماس كوزين. زوروهم على 28841 أرشد لك بفارمينغتون هيلز، ولطلباتكم اتصلوا على 248-987-4609. That's 248-987-4609. دماس كوزين and catering، جبنا لكم الشام لعندكم.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
Life is a nonprofit charity that's provided humanitarian aid and development to people and communities for over 25 years, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Please help improve these efforts. Make your tax-deductible donation to Life now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493.
And welcome back to the Ray Hanania Show here at WNZK AM 690 in Detroit, Michigan, brought to you by the US Arab Radio Network and Laila Alhusini, the US Arab Radio Network journalist and radio founder, who has worked so hard since 2005 to energize and empower Arab Americans through engagement in the media. This is the only network, this is the only radio network that speaks to Arab Americans every day, Monday through Friday from 8 until 9 a.m. in Detroit. And you got to be supporting it because we don't have a voice. There are a couple of other shows all over the place, but here at WNZK, this show is the foundation for what really should be a massive radio enterprise. I'm also grateful to the Arab News newspaper for supporting my show as a sponsor and allowing me to write and share my opinions and my writing in their newspaper. Let's go to the phone lines real quick and get a quick question and message from our friend Jerry Haba. Jerry, thank you so much. What did you think of Jim Zogby's analysis, which I thought was so brilliant?
Michael, too bad you don't have too much time. I want to salute Mr. Jim Zogby because he is one of the smart journalists, American Middle
Great
Eastern.
guy.
So I salute him.
Yes.
Mr. Ray Hanania,
yes.
I'm not trying to change the subject.
That's okay.
As a Middle Eastern American, to be proud, we condemn any threat against any elected official.
Yes.
And yesterday, the news mentioned there was FBI discovered a plot against the life of Michigan Governor Ms. Christian Whitmer. We condemn any hate threat against any official. There's no reason for violence to kidnap her or to kill her. Nobody has the right to do that. So absolutely we condemn that. But Mr. Ray Hanania, I just want to question the governor. Why she tried to blame President Donald Trump? She say he's racist, and that's what happened because he took racist, and the incident happened to discover those criminals was a reaction to President Trump's hatred speech. I just want you to say something about it, please. And thank you, Mr. Ray Hanania.
Thanks, Jerry. You're a good man for always calling and supporting the radio show. I agree. I think that too often people exploit these things, and instead of looking at the real issues, they want to turn it into a political weapon to beat up on people that they want to beat. So instead of addressing it as a crime, they've turned this, even Whitmeyer's have turned this into a political bludgeon to attack Donald Trump and blame him, taking the focus off of the crime, doing exactly what the news media does, taking the focus off of the reality of the candidates and putting it on themselves. She's being selfish, I think, by turning this into a political weapon. She should have addressed it as a crime and not turned it into politics. Jerry, great question. And that obviously was just happening this week, just yesterday. And we're going to look into that more. Unfortunately, we're down to the last few seconds and minutes of the radio show. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I'm sorry about the Facebook Live broadcast streaming issue we had. We'll get that figured out for the next time. But we'll be on Wednesday again. Remember, Wednesday morning here at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on WNZK AM 690 this Wednesday. We'll be talking with some more guests. I know you want to hear it. We got Amar Kampa Najjar from the race in California. We'll have an interview with him. We also have a few more people, so join us. And I want to thank the Arab News newspaper. Remember, support them at arabnews.com. I'm Ray Hanania. Mike, thank you so much for producing the show in Detroit. We will talk to you Wednesday morning, 8 a.m., right here in Detroit. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
The views expressed on the preceding program